the waiters will bring platters of food. So it's like a sit down and a buffet got married and they had a baby. That's what family style is like. Welcome everyone to Weducation by Damie Adeola. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Today's topic is on choosing your wedding food. Buffet meal versus sit-down meal versus family style meal. Okay, so real quick, let's talk about plated meals. A plated meal is more where your guests will be seated and served at their seats. Okay, and it's usually the most expensive. It's more expensive than buffet. However, with that being said, each of the meals have their own uniqueness. Okay, buffet is more when it's lined up, the food is on the table and your guests get to pick what they want. Family style is more where everybody's seated together on the table and the food is served to them. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about the pros and the cons of each meal option. Okay, join me as we go. Now, plated meal characteristics is more a traditional plated dining option. Okay, guests remain seated. Usually it's great for formal dinners, and typically guests would have pre-selected their meals. You would have given them an RSVP card and they would have responded as to what they want to eat. Now, another thing you need to know is that usually it's about 3 courses. So you get an appetizer, you get a main entree, and you get a dessert. However, you can actually get up to 4, 5, 8, even 9 courses. Yeah. Ask the Italians and ask the Chinese. You can eat, there can be as much as you want. It all depends on your budget and your preferences, okay? So now the venues, some venues come with in-house caterers, and sometimes you have to get an outside caterer. And they will usually give you a choice. So you get to pick either a beef meal, a fish meal, a vegetarian meal. And sometimes you get a duo, which means you get to pick both options. So you can get like a chicken and a steak duo, or a chicken and a fish duo, that kind of thing. So those usually are my favorites. Anyway, and the servers, they bring out the meals that you have pre-ordered, okay, on your response card. So your guests would have RSVP'd, and the servers, your cards should also be well identified. I guess we'll do another video about stationaries, but for today, let's focus on the food. Now, personally, at celebration events, we do love plated meals, just because they're just less chaotic and there are no lines, okay? And one good thing is that from the response cards, if it's clearly identified, your caterers know how much food to prepare. So it does limit wastage as well. However, for a plated meal, there are some drawbacks. There's some cons, okay? Let's talk about it a little bit. I mean, I won't call it a disadvantage, but one of the cons is the added cost of wait staff, because you need to kind of look at having 1 to 2 servers to serve 2 to 3 tables. So that takes up the cost. Okay. So another thing is that the size of the guest. Okay. The size of your guest may affect your choice. If you're looking at a lot of guests, okay, the plated meal can have its own advantage to that, because you are going to cut out wait time if you have a buffet meal where there's like 400 guests lining up to get food. Okay. Another thing to consider is your budget, because a plated meal usually is more expensive. So if food is a budget breaker for you, a plated meal, then you could actually go with a family style or a buffet. All right. Another thing is, if you're doing a plated meal service, it is 100% required that you have an RSVP list. You need to have people RSVP, you need escort cards, and you need it to be clearly marked. Okay, so which means that it is best that you have assigned seating, have a seating chart. So that increases your cost of your stationaries, because then now you have to do more printing. But that's really the only way, because if people have pre-selected they're going to have a vegetarian meal, you do not want the wait staff looking for where is Miss Vegetarian, where is she. So that's very important. Another thing you have to consider is that if you have guests that are picky eaters for a plated meal, because you've already predetermined your meal, some guests might not be able to finish everything on the plate, because if they don't like meat and you already went with steak, let's say you didn't even give them a choice, that might cause wastage. Okay, so my advice is, if you're going with a plated meal, make sure that you have your pre-selected menus. Your guests are aware, they've pre-selected their meals, you have place cards, okay? And again, if somebody isn't comfortable with your choice, your menu selection, it's really up to you if you want to accommodate them or not, okay? Now let's talk about the pros, the advantages to a sit-down meal, because there are advantages to it. Well, believe it or not, you can actually save money with a plated meal. Even though it's the most expensive, it's because you can actually control the portion. You can control how many. So usually the proteins are the most expensive. So with a sit down meal, you can say, okay, we're only going to do one protein or two proteins, okay? Because if you're doing a buffet, you have to order more. Okay, usually with buffet, you have to accommodate the one beef, one fish, one chicken kind of meal. So you save money that way. And also because your caterers know exactly how much food they have to prepare, so you limit wastage, okay? So that is an advantage for a sit-down meal, okay? Another thing is that when the couple opts for a buffet style meal, they definitely have to serve a variety. Okay, you've got to serve a variety because you're trying to cater to everybody. But an advantage of a sit-down meal is you just limit it to what it is that you want, and that's it. And once you limit it to say two choices, you watch your bills shrink. Your budget will just, you don't spend as much money. All right. Another pro is that everybody gets served at the same time. Yeah. So everybody gets to eat at the same time. You limit that wait time of everybody. Table 1, table 10, table 40. Everybody just sits down and they enjoy their food. Another advantage is that you can actually spread out your activities. You can spread out the dances, the speeches, the toast, all of that. Work it in with the plated meal, because then you know that, okay, we're going to be serving dinner between, for example, 7:30 and 8:30. So you know already that, okay, then we can do the speeches afterwards, or we can do the dances in between, that kind of thing. It just helps you. Okay, now let's go to buffet meal. Now, a buffet menu is more where you have various dishes all set up on a long table or antipasto bar. It doesn't matter. Round table, long table. The point is various kinds of meals are being served, are set aside, and guests actually get to pick and choose whatever they desire to eat. Okay? So another thing is you can even have the servers. If you want to limit wastage or buffet, you can actually have servers lined up behind and they dish out the food from behind the serving point. Okay? Some people say, I want people to serve themselves. Blah, blah, blah. Well, honestly, do you? But a good pro again about buffet is you can jazz up your buffet table how you want. You can have carving blocks. You can have carving stations. Honestly, we also love buffets because with all of that, you get to just pick what it is that you want. You get to pick how you want to customize your meal. Okay? Also, a buffet gives you an informal feel. Okay? A sit down is more formal, but if people get to interact with each other, get to chat, you're here, how are you? All that kind of stuff with a buffet meal, which you can't really get with a sit down menu. Okay? Now, I would advise though that in order to avoid long lines and avoid confusion on all that, mark your food. Let people know what it is that you're serving, okay? Put the description. Let them know this is fried plantains, this is rice with veggies, whatever it is. Identify. Also, have multiple buffet lines to be able to reduce the lineups. All right? Okay, now let's talk about the cons. Your guests now, because it's open feeding, they get to go for seconds and thirds and fourths and fifths, right? So, there. You might have wasted there, or you might have to spend more money there. Another disadvantage is people having to wait. People have to wait and wait and wait and wait and wait and wait. So, yeah, you get variety, but then certain people just can't standing in line. Another disadvantage is the fact that guests have to hold their plates and walk to the table. Sometimes it just takes away from that elegance sometimes. But you know what? Some guests they don't really care about the elegance. They just want to eat, right? And they like the fact that there is different varieties there. So, but really for the bride and groom, you're going to watch your video and see people carrying plates. They're going to the table with their plates. Also, another disadvantage with buffets is you have to actually order a large quantity, amount of food, because you really can't tell. Like, if you don't want the chicken to run out, you don't want the fish to run out, like you don't want the steak to run out, so you have to be prepared. Fine, your venue or your caterer has to over budget. Even if you were only expecting 100 guests, they just have to make food for like 100 and something. Okay, all right. Now, another drawback to buffets is that buffets can actually, it can keep you cash trapped, in the sense that even though you don't need as much wait staff, now you may have to rent chafing dishes, you may need to get like linens, all these little things add up. Then you may need to, like, the fuel. Honestly, with food, you've just got to figure out what the overall look is and what you prefer, a sit down or a buffet. Because with buffet also, you have to think about platters, you have to think about the serving, thingies. So if you're catering, if you're doing it yourself, think about all these factors. Okay, now, like I said, a pro is that fewer servers are required. So if you've saved money on your servers, maybe you can spend that money on the rentals. Okay, so yeah, it balances out. And buffets also make it kind of easier and more cost effective for guests to pick their choices. So it's just helpful because people have allergies these days, right? So they can decide that, no, I want veggies, no, I don't want veggies, no, I want chicken. Yeah, it just gives them more options, and your guests will love you for that. Plus, I mentioned earlier, it helps interaction, it helps mingling, it just helps your guests to, yeah, they like it. Okay, now the third kind of meal service is called the family style menu. Now, the family style is where it's like a plated dinner, but the only difference is that all your guests will be seated at a table, and then the waiters will bring platters of food. So it's like a sit down and a buffet got married and they had a baby. That's what family style is like. So you're sitting down and they bring platters, they bring the platter of the rice, of the chicken, of the, and then all the guests sitting around the table will then serve themselves. It's almost like you are a Sunday night dinner at mama's house or grandma's house, that kind of thing. So they still get to interact, they don't have to get up, you don't have to really pay for the extra staff. It's like you marry both worlds together, okay? It's very inviting and very interactive, okay? And the guests, they get a chance to know each other as well. Plus, you cut out the wait time, you cut out the high tickets of service staff, but there's still disadvantages to it. So family style, you have to consider added rental costs, okay? Because now you're going to be doing more platters. It's not just serving a guest. You have to think about the platter of chicken, the platter of fish, the platter of this, the platter of that. All those added platters, they add up. Also, even though you don't need as much wait staff as a sit down meal, you still are going to be spending on those rental costs, right? You're spending on those rental costs. So it does affect, yeah, that's something to consider. Another disadvantage is that you're going to need extra room. So imagine a family style dinner, everybody sitting on the table. You need a lot of room to be able to put all those platters down. So what it means is that you will have to skip on those elaborate, expensive centerpieces. You have to do something small because there's not going to be enough room to place all those 8 platters that you have. So yeah, you may actually save money on decor and flowers and all that. Because honestly, you really don't want your guests crammed at the table. You may also have to pay for extra bigger tables because for a family style table, you can't have a small table that sits 8 guests. You need to be able to accommodate for those extra dishes because guests are going to be passing dishes around. Okay, just imagine it's like pass around. Blah, blah, blah. It's really nice, but think about it. Rental costs may go up. Okay, you also have to account for the fact that you may need to spend more on linens. The reason is that if you now have to get a larger table, yeah, they all might have like those tablecloths that may not go to the floor. So you may now need to get like extra linens, all that kind of stuff, extra plates, all those costs. Okay, so that's the thing about family style. However, are there advantages? Of course, there are pros to family style because your guests would not need to pre-select an entree. They don't have to fill out an RSVP card. So you save on stationaries. You save on paper costs. You save on the time of following up. Hello, Uncle Bo, what do you want? You haven't decided. You want chicken, you want fish? Because Uncle Bo's going to have to just, at the table, decide what he wants. So you save on paper, you save on time. for family style. Also, you would say you wouldn't, your guests wouldn't really need to get up and move around. They can just sit down and enjoy themselves. So it's really up to you what style you want. You also save on your elaborate centerpieces, as I've said earlier on. Okay, and every cost savings matters when it comes to weddings. Okay, and your guests can help themselves to as much as they like. You know, with a plated service, it's pre measured, but with a family style, they serve themselves. However, I pray that your guests will respect each other, because sometimes guests do not account for the people on the table and they just take 2 pieces. So make sure that if you have a table of 8, you actually make sure you have enough for everybody and maybe some extra. Okay, so to wrap this up, I just want to recap that you've got a plated meal service, you've got a buffet service, you've also got a family style service. And there are pros to each one of them and there are cons to each one of them. So at the end of the day, you've got to figure out what works for your budget. You've also got to figure out what works well for your overall wedding style. Okay? And again, make sure your venue can accommodate the choice you've gone with. Because some venues don't have enough chefing dishes, or some venues don't have enough platters for the family style, or some venues don't have enough staff to actually do the sit-down meal. So I would really love to know what is your preferred meal option. If you can comment below, I would like that a lot. Let me know what is your preferred meal option. And also, don't forget, this has been Weducation with Damie Adeola, and I look forward to seeing your comments. And if you have any questions, shoot me an email, adeola@celebrationevents.ca, or leave a comment below. Thank you. It's been a wonderful episode. Take care. Bye.